announced the inflation figures as compiled by the Consumer Price Index. And the inflation rate of 9.4% is the lowest we've had since August 2021. That should be good news. But it's not very clear in the market because it appears some food prices are still notoriously high. Tonight we'll delve into that issue with two very important personalities. Stay with us.
Remember who we are seeing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her 20 ebitimi prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu na dia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi meniche Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home. Facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system ni. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Kwame and his uncle are almost here.
Wait a minute. This one too, your friend Kwame.
Wait, Kwame. As in the same Kwame again?
Yes, mommy.
I'm
The second coming.
into all this tension just to reintroduce that broke boy from Kaswa.
Why would you deceive the family like this again?
Now I understand the whole delay. Troll from Kaswati. Why wouldn't he be late? Or be late?
Of course.
Star 712 hash, star 712 hash. You go feel the luckiest. Go feel from Georgia be luckiest. From not the pure cause she be luckiest. Yeah, you go feel be luckiest. No matter why you're lucky. Everybody go feel be that luckiest.
That Kwame!
Send your God down for boom. If you put it toye, so would the coming of the Son of Man be. Is that his car?
Dial star 712 hash. Choose your ticket. Enter your lucky number. Follow the prompt and let destiny handle the rest.
This promotion is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform.
So tonight we'll be looking at the good news of very low or lowering inflation, but the mixed news of food prices being notoriously sticky. So the government statistician, Dr. Alhassan Idrisu, addressed the press on the 1st of October, and he had good news for Ghanaians. He says the price of goods and services increased by 9.4% when you compare September this year to September last year. It's called year-on-year inflation. That's the 9th consecutive drop in inflation, the lowest inflation rate since August 2021, and a 2.21% drop from August 2025 to September. So it's great news. But there appears to be trouble because many journalists and many analysts are still saying when you go to the market, you can't really feel it. I'm going to bring you two stories that confirms this. The first one is taken from the High Street Journal, and the journalist there essentially asked the same question we're asking on the show tonight. If inflation is falling so well, how come food prices are not reacting the way they ought? So on the 3rd of October, a story was written capturing this very troubling fact. I'm going to read some highlights of the story to you before I bring you my first interview. Now, the story is written by Frederick Adai-Kwarteng, and it's titled, "Despite the glut onions, yams, and others make list of top 20 inflation drivers, signaling supply chain issues. Now, basically, Ghana has two good things going for it. We had a bumper harvest. In fact, if you listen to the City Breakfast Show last week, we discussed gluts of many things. The government had to order the buffer stock company to essentially buy tons of maize that farmers produced but could not sell. We also had a bumper harvest of tomatoes in the Volta region. We've had bumper harvests of other products, signaling that production has gone up. You typically expect prices of food to come down. But this story says, although it's harvest season and many food items are in high production, there are some few products that are still notoriously expensive. Latest data from the Statistical Service shows that some items like onions, for example, recorded a 13.8% increase month to month, while yams saw an increase on a year-on-year basis, but recorded a decline on a month-on-month basis. Even derivatives such as cooked rice went up by 14.6%. Popular dishes like kinke with fried fish went up by 18.2%. And according to the report, this paints a truly troubling picture. Of course, maize and rice are in season, so you'd expect that derivatives like kinke and cooked rice should be cheaper. But there's an irony there, according to this article. It goes on to trace the possible reasons why this is so. So that's the first story that I want us to think about. So that story was written on the 3rd of October, just 2 days after the inflation figures for September were released. Then the Ghanaian Times yesterday also published an equally troubling story, which suggests a mixed situation. So it says, food prices swing in Accra markets. Survey shows complex picture of scarcity, abundance, shifting consumer preference. That story is on October 7th. So that's just yesterday. Food prices across major markets in Accra continue to fluctuate, with some staples recording steep price hikes, while others are experiencing sharp declines. The situation has left both traders and consumers struggling to adapt and plan their daily, weekly, and monthly groceries. A market survey by the Ghanaian Times at Abubuloshi, Kaneshie, and Anya markets between September 25 and 30 revealed a complex picture of scarcity, abundance, and shifting consumer preferences. At Abubuloshi, one of the capital's busiest food hubs, prices of essentials such as tomatoes, onions, yam, and imported rice have seen steep rises in recent weeks. Now that's troubling, right? Prices of essentials such as tomatoes, onions, yam, and imported rice have seen steep rises in recent weeks. It goes on to say, for example, a box of tomatoes, which sold for 800 cedis in early August, now goes for between 1,200 and 1,500 cedis, while a bag of onions imported from Niger has jumped from 900 cedis to over 1,300 cedis. According to Ms. Abigail Frimpong, a tomato seller of 10 years, they were struggling due to the lack of consistency in the price of tomatoes. Similarly, some consumers shared their frustrations. Mrs. Judith Shine Kwashi, a mother of 4, said the same money she spent 2 months ago now buys less than half of her family's needs, adding that planning has become very, very difficult. But that's not the full story. The story says at the Anya market, where seasonal crops are in abundance, tomatoes, which now are in season, are being sold at 350 cedis per basket, down from the previous 600, while a bag of onions, which peaked at 3,000 earlier this year, now costs between 1,000 and 1,500. It then talks about the Kaneshie market as well and paints a mixed picture of prices. Gari and rice are falling marginally, offering some relief. For example, a local of Gari, which used to sell at 35 cedis same period last year, now goes for 30 cedis, while a 5-kilogram bag of maize has dropped from 110 cedis to 90 cedis. All right. It then goes on to say that beyond prices, consumer behavior is also shifting. Traders in Kaneshie report that shoppers are increasingly favoring imported rice over local varieties, despite improvements in quality. We'll deal with this when we talk to the Agric Minister. Indeed, we spoke to him a few days ago on this matter. We're going to bring you that interview shortly. Madam Bridget, a rice seller, explained that many buyers prefer foreign rice because it looks cleaner and cooks better. Even when local rice is cheaper, some customers won't buy it, she said. The traders have therefore called on government to step up interventions, including subsidizing fertilizer, supporting mechanization, etc., etc., etc. The last story is about the glut that we've seen in various products. So that if you read, for example, citynewsroom.com and a few other websites, it was reported that there was a massive maize glut in parts of the country where you have almost an overproduction and yet nobody's buying. Same was said for tomatoes in some markets, and same was said for even some poultry products. So tonight I'm going to do two things. I'm going to speak to the government statistician to explain how he calculates inflation and what possibly could be going on, because all the major indicators show that inflation is coming down, and we agree with that. But how come when it comes to food, we are not seeing a commensurate reduction in some food prices? Before that, a few days ago, I spoke to the Minister for Food and Agriculture, who is also MP for Esunafo South. This is Eric Opoku. And I asked him, how come you have gluts of many products, yet prices were not coming down? In fact, it was an interview which covered a lot of things. But the first question I asked him had to do with the seeming glut and the price stickiness upwards. So I'm bringing you some highlights of that before we speak to the government statistician as well. So here's Eric Opoku talking to me about food prices. In the past 3 weeks, we've read 4 stories about supposed gluts.
Yes.
Tomato in Asante Akim Central, maize in a couple of places, rice in Odan Kwanta in Eastern, and in August, eggs in some parts of the country.
And several other places.
Very good. Now, what is concerning for us is twofold.
Yeah.
Why are there these isolated gluts? Is it that there's overproduction, or there's a question of lack of ability to buy, or transportation and lack of storage? What, in your view, is accounting for these reported gluts of these products?
Thank you very much, Bernard, and let me greet your cherished viewers. In fact, it is not isolated. It is nationwide. In all the production centers, that is what we are experiencing. As I speak with you, I'm returning from Bebiani to Kumasi, and it's the same situation. The rice farmers are complaining. They are produced in quantities beyond the market there, and they are not getting buying. In Esunafo South, in my own constituency, the youth that participated in the Feed Ghana program came to me that they are harvesting the rice in quantities, and they are looking for market. So it is not the case that we are recording isolated, situations or incidents. But what is happening now, it is a nationwide bumper harvest that Ghana is experiencing. Now, what was accounted for that? Simple. We launched what we call the Feed Ghana program. The first leg of the Feed Ghana program is a campaign for mass participation in the program. We campaign that individual households must have backyard gardens. We campaign that secondary schools must have school farms. And then from the beginning of the campaign up to today, we have on record 129 secondary schools participating. We also campaign for churches and faith-based organizations to also participate in the program. We have records of churches participating, some issuing instructions to their branches to take advantage of the fertile soil of our land to also produce something. We have also advocated that state agencies must also engage in the program. They are all participating. And you must understand that the agricultural space is dominated, it's entirely private sector led. And so when government creates that congenial atmosphere for the private sector to take advantage of, certainly we are likely to see some of these things. And let me agree that this year the weather has also been very, very favorable. And so the result of all these things should be bumper harvest, which we anticipated at the beginning of the program. And that was why we made allocations to the National Buffer Stock to get themselves ready to procure the excess, mop up the excess produce from the market, store them, and release against emergencies. Now, your question relates to the price, eh? I think you asked about the price.
I'm not even gotten to the price yet. First, I wanted for you to establish that there was actually a nationwide glut, because I have just read 4 stories. Now, you are saying...
That one is not contestable. It is something that nobody can contest.
No.
Because, Bernard, you know we have 2 farming seasons. In the southern sector, they start their farming season from March, and then they harvest around this period. The northern sector, they start their season from May, June, and then harvest November, December. What we are seeing now is just the harvest from the southern sector. Very soon, the northern sector harvest will kick in, and then it is going to be serious.
Well,
the figures we have indicate that the number of people participating in agriculture in this country has increased significantly. We have a lot of our youth participating, and even journalists participating, footballers, everybody. Agriculture is now the cynosure of our country. Everybody is talking about, and everybody is participating. So certainly, we are going to have some of these things happening. That one nobody can dispute.
Of course, I'm sure later on you will give us the figures so we will see how big the glut is. The second question, though, is if there's such a glut, why are food prices still so expensive? I think today we saw a story in the High Street Journal which says the basic cost of these food items is not coming down. So if there's so much overproduction, why are the prices still so high?
Now, let me explain this. The Ghana Statistical Service, in January 2023, indicated that food inflation, that's the rate at which food prices were going up at that time, was 61%. In September 2024, it dropped to 22.1%. In January 2025, it rose to 23.8%. In September 2025, it has dropped to 14.8%. Bernard, what other things are you looking at to agree to the fact that, yes, food prices are coming down? But let me take this out so that people will understand me better. Now, when you go to the production points, the farmers are complaining that they were selling a truck of yam at 7,000 Ghana cedis. Now, when they started harvest, it reduced to 4,000 and it's now hovering around 2,000, 3,000 at the production point, the farm gate. Now, when it comes to the centers, the urban areas, where people don't produce, they only consume, the figures we are receiving is that the prices are coming down significantly. But there is one problem. Some of our people in the cities don't go to the Ghanaian market like Abobroshi and others. They shop from the malls. When you go to the mall, some of the food items you see there are imported. And the prices cannot be compared to the local food now, because local sources are now cheaper than the imported sources. Then again, regardless of the fact that we have some middlemen, some people operating as middlemen between the farmers and the urban areas, engaging in profiteering, trying to enjoy abnormal profits, buying cheaply from the farmers and selling at cutthroat prices to the consumers, the prices are far, far, far better. We are asking Ghanaians that we have decided to produce to feed Ghanaian people. Ghanaian people must also reciprocate our gesture by eating Ghana.
Okay, Minister, let's pause on the second point you made. If there's so much food, a lot of my listeners go to market to buy food. Me, as I sit here, I don't buy from mall. We go to Medina market to buy. We would have seen it. So if you say one of the reasons why the prices may be high is the choice of where to buy. I think most Ghanaians still go to markets to buy food. And if there's a glut, we will actually see it in the market.
If you go to the market to buy tomato, you appreciate that the price has come down. Because in terms of quantities, you see it. Some people came to my office and they were testifying to the fact that they went to the market and the quantity of tomato that they bought at that price, they've never seen it before. Even in onion, people were saying it. Plantain everywhere. I'm getting to Kumasi.
What about maize? What about maize and rice?
The price of maize has fallen so significantly to the extent that when it was 1,400 last year, now we are selling at 500, 400. In some markets, in Techiman, Ejra area, the market people called. The farmers were saying that they are now selling below 400. And then we said, no, that shouldn't be. Then we should work to bring the price down. I have some colleagues, members of parliament, who are into the maize business. They procured the maize last year. They were keeping them thinking that they were going to get some profit, higher prices. Unfortunately, the price has fallen so low that the MP was in my office asking that we buy a bag of maize at 500. We said no. He said at the time he was purchasing, it was 900 per bag. But now, because he's not getting the market and the price is collapsing, if we can even offer him 500, it will be okay. That is last year's produce.
Okay, so how come...
we are now harvesting that of this year.
So, Minister, correct. How come poultry farmers still complain about the cost of feed? Is it that we are producing the maize that we eat and not the ones that the poultry farmers use? Because if maize is in such a glut, it should affect because maize is the bulk component of the poultry feed.
You see, we are now harvesting. And then the poultry farmers, what they use to prepare the feed, they use the dried properly, the thoroughly dried one. So they are still using the last year's produce, which they procured at that price. Now looking at what we have now, and the price at which the maize is being sold, certainly when they produce, next year it will bring the feed down. And we are also coming out with a lot of strategies. We are not looking at maize alone as the only ingredient that can affect the price of poultry feed. There are other things that we are looking at. And so when we are done with all the strategies we are putting in place, certainly cost of feed will come down. I engaged with one of the poultry feed producers. The company is located here in Kumasi. And the man said, looking at the price at which they are buying the maize and the facilities they have to dry and other things, they are going to reduce the price of the feed significantly. And we have even engaged them to produce for us and then emboss on them and Ngokon Kitinkiti feed so that we can distribute to people who are participating in the Ngokon Kitinkiti project. So, Bernard, let us first understand that we have not seen this before. It's a blessing to this decision.
Well, sometimes some things emerge. We must sustain it before we can start.
This year,
Minister,
yourself, you participated in the campaign.
We
look at the agri something that you did.
Yeah, the agri fair, not the agri something
that you generated. The advocacy that you have done on your studio.
Yes.
So this interest must result in higher production.
Fair enough, Minister. If there's so much production, how come farmers are not able to store? Why is there a storage problem? Because people are saying nobody's buying. In the chain, you produce, you put in silos, you process.
I agree with you.
How come they need it to be bought immediately? Because this is basic agriculture, right?
Most of our farmers, they don't have storage facilities. Don't forget that when you look at the farmer population in Ghana, more than 80% is peasant farmers. They produce basically to feed their homes and sell the little excess to enable them buy the few things that they want to buy. Subsistence farming. These people do not have the capacity to provide the kind of silos that will be sufficient to accommodate the production that they are witnessing. But at least in the villages, they have small means of, storing food. What we are saying that we are developing the entire chain. We are developing the entire value chain from production until it gets to the table for consumption. So when they have the excess and people are not buying, buffer stock must step in there to buy that excess and then store them against emergencies. Storage is a problem because individuals do not have. But those who are into commercial farming, they have the storage facilities. Then let me indicate to you, one of the farmers came to my office and said he wants to produce 30,000 tons of yellow maize. And he wanted assurance from me whether government of Ghana can buy that. I told him, yes, we are ready. If the quantity is available today, he should let us know.
All right.
Yesterday, he called me and said the quantity is available. And I've provided his number and details to the buffer store for them to move in there immediately to procure those quantities.
Minister.
So these are some of the things that we should anticipate.
Fair enough.
We haven't developed our agriculture to its fullest. We are still developing, and we have to do this together. But it's an indication that don't look at it as a challenge alone. It is also an opportunity for investment.
Very
if
good.
we don't have solid facilities, can Bernard and others advocate for interested business guys, prospective business guys to also participate in that area, put up solid facilities like a colleague of mine is doing in the Bono region? We can do that.
All right, Minister, two points, and thank you so much for your time. Last year, we had a dry spell, 2024, which gripped at least 8 of our 16 regions. So it means that our harvested maize for last year was much lower than anticipated. So we need to put this year's production in context compared to last year, because we had a dry spell last year and you had good weather this year and your government programs have increased production. We must look at the bump in production from the context of the dry spell last year, because last year was not a normal year. That's point number one. Number two, because of the dry spell, there was a lot of imports. In fact, one report says Ghana's grain imports are projected to rise to 67% in 2025-2026 to ostensibly make up for the shortage of 2024.
That is excellent.
Good.
Is excellent.
So if you are importing much more maize in a time where people are producing more, you know that somehow the imports are able to be cheaper than the local producers for some reason. So maybe one of the reasons why the farmers are struggling is that maybe for rice, for example, the imports are much cheaper, and therefore people cannot patronize the local one, and this could translate to others as well. So the question of the imports should also be seriously looked at.
I agree with you that last year, because of the dry spell, there were a lot of import of rice and maize into the country. But don't forget that last year, the exchange rate was higher. So regardless of the fact that they were waiving taxes on those imports to make up for the shortfall, prices of those items are still high. They are higher compared to what we are harvesting now. Now, in the case of the rice and other things that you talk about, we distributed rice seed to our farmers across the country free of charge. It was a deliberate intervention to increase rice production. In fact, in all the communities I have visited, what they tell me is that the type of rice we gave them has been the best, and they want us to give them more. Now, and then also because of the campaign, I've told you earlier on that many young people, men and women, boys and girls, have participated in the space, and they are producing in those quantities. Today, I can confirm to you that the price of local rice is cheaper than the imported one in our market. But then, Ghanaians must understand this. We cannot continue to be moochers, trying to get everything free, borrowing and not paying. No. We must understand that nobody will come and face this country for us. We must do everything on our own. If you go to the market and you see local rice and then imported rice, and you choose to buy the imported rice, you are creating jobs in the country where the rice came from at the expense of your own people. If the jobs have been created here, your children, my children, grandchildren, neighbors, siblings, whoever will be employed, and we'll build the economy together. So it is part of the education that we are working on. But now, I also have instances where some of these importers have come to me, that they have the maize, they imported them, nobody is buying. In fact, they are losing their investment. Is it the case that we can do something about it? I told them, we are not in to buy imported rice. And so they should hold on.
Right.
You know, immediately we assume office, there was a case that happened. I've never shared with the media. Once you have pushed me, I will share with you. Ghana, as part of the measures to make up for the shortfalls caused by the dry spell, they had arranged with ECOWAS to borrow additional rice and maize. And so ECOWAS came to me that they wanted to lift the grains from Burkina Faso to us. But because of the political turbulence in that area, they are not allowed to even step there and then let alone moving rice from that country. And so they wanted to discuss with me how we can make out for the shortfall. I asked them to give me 2-3 weeks to do some consultations. I spoke to some of the churches, and one church invited me to their farms. And they told me that, look, these are quantities of rice that we are storing against emergencies. They had more than 40,000 bags in one area. And then they told me that this area, they have this quantity, that area, they have that quantity. So I shouldn't be afraid. There is no cause for alarm. I came back, told the ECOWAS people that Ghana is not interested again. We don't need it. They should keep their 200,000 or whatever. We don't need it. And then I stopped them. Now, these churches have their storage facilities. Some of them, they have their storage facilities, and they are storing against emergencies. Some churches are buying their own produce. It will shock you to note that one particular church wrote letters to all their branches, directing them as to what they should produce for us to, overcome the challenge that we are having. I sent my team down there, and the report before me indicates that, in fact, we have a lot of grains on the ground. So the imports that came, at some point we truncated it. We said we are not going to issue a permit for people to import those things again. So yes, they came, but they're also struggling to get the market. Once we have ours, and ours is cheaper, we expect the rational Ghanaian consumers to tilt to that of Ghana for a lot of advantages, so that together we can solve the problem.
So I agree that these interventions are important, but you know that because importers have so much money, structurally the best way to fight this is to invest in local production so that the producers can produce at a lower cost to be competitive when compared to the importers. So for example, I heard you announce, I think a few months ago, that some Qataris were investing $1.5 billion in agriculture by November. Are they investing it in production? If it is, in what kind of food? And is it meant for the local market to consume or to export to Qatar? Because these are the things that we need to get clear. If the local producers can be competitive, then they must have enough finance to produce, to be competitive compared to the importers. But it looks like a lot of the money coming in, when the money comes in and they invest, they are investing because they want us to export these products to their own markets. So food prices in Ghana still remain high. So I just want you to use the Qatar example to convince us that you are attracting the right type of money into agric, and our local producers can be competitive so that no matter who imports, local production will still be more affordable.
Yes. I will not use only the Qatar case. I'm going to add another one. We have the Italian company called BF International. They are now in Bato. They are doing 10,000 hectares. They are producing rice, they are producing maize, they are doing tomatoes and soya. When I went to Italy, I mentioned you there. I single you out for the special role you are playing in the agricultural space. For the time you took to mobilize Ghanaians, to create awareness, stimulate interest in agricultural production. It is a commendable effort that we say everywhere. We mention everywhere.
So you went to Italy without me and you mentioned me there. And you said you took me to Italy. Just you mentioned me there. So I was here and you were there. And you were mentioning me there. And you said you took me there to show my face.
Bernard, I didn't take you there, but I mentioned you there. It means that you are working for the people. Because even after you are deaf, your legacy will linger on. And that is most important.
No, you're a big man. So I'll see you in November again to do part 2 of the Agri Fair. We will push Agri by all means. Thank you. So that was Eric Opoku with me, hailing my achievements in Ghana to people in Italy by keeping me here in Ghana. But on a more serious note, we did that interview exactly a week ago today, which is the 1st of October. That was the same day that Dr. Alassane Idrisu also announced the latest consumer price index figures. He's joined us to also help us think through how he sees the inflation trend, why food prices in some markets seem to be sticky upwards, and what we need to do so people can feel the real effect of lower inflation. Stay with us.
His uncle are almost here.
Wait a minute. This one too, your friend Kwame.
Wait, Kwame. As in the same Kwame again?
Yes, mommy.
The second coming. Into all this tension just to reintroduce that broke boy from Kaswa.
Why would you deceive the family like this again?
Now I understand the whole delay. Trot from Kaswa. Why wouldn't he be late? Or be late?
Of course.
Star 712 hash, star 712 hash. Yeah, you go be the luckiest. Copy from Georgia be luckiest. From not the cause she be luckiest. Yeah, you go be luckiest. No matter what you're luckiest. Everybody go be the luckiest.
That's Kwame!
Send your God apple boom. If you're poor, what's that? So would the coming of the Son of Man be. Is that his car?
Dial star 712 hash. Choose your ticket. Enter your lucky number. Follow the prompt and let destiny handle the rest.
This promotion is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform.
Announcing Ghana's first unlimited photocopier leasing. Yes, from just 983 Ghana cedis, you can lease a multifunctional photocopier and print unlimited. Yes, unlimited and free paper every month. Guess what? That's not all. Toners, repairs, and maintenance all are free. And oh, I'm not kidding at all. And we cover the whole country. Yes, the whole country. What are you waiting for? Just visit us at www.valexlease.com or call 0244 644048. Remember, terms and conditions apply. Valix Lease, affordable document management solutions.
Remember who we are seeing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We remember oha 20 ebitimi prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu nadia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi manichi Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system ni. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Kwame and his uncle are almost here.
Wait a minute. This one too, your friend Kwame.
Wait, Kwame. As in the same Kwame again?
Yes, mommy.
The second coming. Into all this tension just to reintroduce that broke boy from Kaswa.
Why would you deceive the family like this again?
Now I understand the whole delay. Trot from Kaswa. Why wouldn't he be late? Or be late?
Of course.
Star 712 hash, star 712 hash. Yeah, you go could be the luckiest. Coffee from Georgia be luckiest. From not the pure cause she be luckiest. Yeah, you go be lucky, luckiest. No matter why you're luckiest. Everybody go be the luckiest.
God Kwame!
Send your God the apple boom. If you put it toye, so would the coming of the son of man be. Is that his car?
Dial star 712 hash. Choose your ticket. Enter your lucky number. Follow the prompt and let destiny handle the rest.
This promotion is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform.
Welcome back. The point of view tonight is inquiring into a very simple matter. Inflation has been falling consistently for many, many months. The latest CPI figures indicate a 9.4% year-on-year inflation for September 2025, which is the 9th consecutive reduction in inflation. This is great news. Food inflation has also come down from 14% to around 11%. Not too bad. But as we read in the newspapers and as we've checked, in some markets, some products are still very high. Of course, cooked food like kenke and rice, still pretty high. And of course, in some markets, tomatoes were still high, although in other markets, they were low. Dr. Alassane Idrisu is the government statistician. He's joined us for some thoughts on this. Doc, thanks for joining us on The Point of View. Good evening.
Good evening. And thank you for the opportunity. Good evening to your cherished listeners and viewers.
Wonderful. I think we need to congratulate you first because I think this is the first time I'm talking to you since you took over as government statistician. Of course, you've been in the finance ministry for a very long time, and you've been working from across the wall, and now you are in the statistics department. First point, 9.4% inflation is even lower than what government projected for the year. Government was looking at 11 point something. What are your general thoughts on the latest CPI figures, and how happy are you about the direction of inflation?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Bernard. I mean, the latest figures show that Ghana has hit a single-digit inflation in 4 years. I mean, and what this means for the economy and then the ordinary Ghanaian is that even though we have an inflation rate of 9.4%, which is the lowest we've recorded in 4 years, and of course down sharply from the 23.8% we recorded in December 2024, what we all need to understand is that this is still indicating that prices are rising, but they are rising at a much slower pace. Now, if you look at the inflation figures we released, the September inflation figures, you'll realize that, yes, we have recorded this significant achievement in inflation. But if you check the month on month, you will see that inflation was 0.9%. And what that means is that between August and September 2025, we saw prices increasing by 0.9%. So what this means is that, yes, we've made some progress, but prudence still is very, very important. Now, this milestone actually signals that Ghana is gradually gaining control over price growth, and the trend is towards stability. It has a number of implications. For household and for the ordinary Ghanaian, this brings predictability. Families can better plan their school fees payment, they can plan their rent payment, and then the grocery shopping that they do with less fear of a sudden price jump. Also, the average household that faced between 20 to 30% increase in prices last year is now seeing much smaller adjustments. So that's a good news. That's very good news for households. If you take businesses, for example, it brings stability in input costs and then also the lending conditions, because we know how inflation affects the policy rate and therefore the interest rates. It softens the interest rates. And once it softens the interest rates, and we all know that funds are very important for business growth. So businesses are able to access these funds to improve their businesses and also to make better investment decisions with less risks. Now, if you look at it from a broader angle, particularly from the viewpoint of policy making, from the viewpoint of investors, and then the wider economy, when you record such disinflation process, which brings inflation to such low levels, it restores trust in the economy, and then it also boosts confidence among investors. And then we have businesses and consumers also generating confidence in the economy. But I must emphasize that this is not a time to relax at all. In fact, inflation of 9.4 still means that on the average, we are seeing the general price level increasing by 9.4% between September of last year and then September of this year. So there's still some, price increase. Yes, we brought it to single digit, so we shouldn't relax at all. So it's progress. But the goal now should be, how do we sustain this single digit inflation? That's the most important question. And we can actually do this by continuing to do what we are doing, which is actually keeping the inflation down. And this will include keeping public spending disciplined, supporting local food production, and also maintaining policy coordination. And this is how we can turn this stability into a lasting growth and then also real relief for households.
Doc, thank you. So you've done a couple of things. You've differentiated between year-on-year inflation, represented by the green line in the highlights chart, and month-on-month. So year-on-year is trending downwards nicely. But when you look at the orange line month-on-month, it's sort of flickering up and down. Because, for example, June month-on-month was negative 1.2. July, it went up to 0.7. August, it came down to negative 1.3. September, 0.9 positive. So it tells you that when we compare this year to last year, things are better. But when we compare last month to the previous month, things may not necessarily be in the right direction. So that's first point. Second point, you have this chart where you now show trends in food inflation, where you have 4 charts on the table. It seems to me as if food is a bigger problem than non-food, because the food chart seems much higher, unless I'm mistaken. So it looks like we have a food inflation problem compared to non-food, because non-food inflation seems to be flatter. Am I correct in this second conclusion based on this chart I've put up there?
So Bernard, I mean, if you look at the chart, you would see that, yes, in the past, the food inflation figures we saw were very, very high compared to the non-food. But if you look at the disinflation path, in fact, food inflation movements over the past few months, especially the past 8 months, has been much quicker than non-food. So that's a trend we are seeing. And in fact, that trend is positive in the sense that it is telling us exactly where we are getting the gains from in terms of the disinflation. The food basket is over 40%. So if you have the food basket alone, which is over 40%, and that is showing a very fast disinflation process, it means that if you are tackling inflation, you really have to look at food. It means food is very important in the equation. So any disturbance to the food inflation path will actually worry the overall inflation trend. I mean, I agree with you that food inflation was higher in the beginning, but if you look at the disinflation path, it is the one that is actually slowing down the most, which is positive, which is very, very positive, because we all know the importance of food in households. We know the importance of food for businesses, and then we know the importance of food for the whole economy in general.
The other point which I find interesting is your key takeaways, where you have this green, light green, yellow. Your top 10 high inflation items, a lot of them are food though. So ginger is almost over 100% year-on-year inflation, 113%. Then you have cashew, 99.9% inflation. Fresh coconut, 90.5. I don't understand why coconut is so prices are so high. Avocado pear, 90.1.
Yes.
Foreign apple seems to be the first imported food in that chart, in that group, which is 66. Palm fruits, 64. Crab, 54. Why are locally produced food items, which you would think should be cheaper, rather having such high inflation rates in that list of 10? What's going on there?
Okay, so Bernard, this is a very important question. So I want to answer this question from a different angle. So what we showed on the screen with regards to the top 20 high inflation items, of course, we are seeing some food items there, was just to show the items that are contributing to inflation for the country. So in other words, if we are saying that inflation is 9.4% exactly for September, and we are also saying that the national inflation rate of 9.4%, food inflation actually is 11.1%. Remember that in December 2024, food inflation was 27.8%. So we're actually seeing food inflation reduced by 17 percentage points between December last year and then September this year. Now, this 17 percentage points drop in food inflation, I would like us to look at it this way. First of all, what are the food items that actually contributed the most to this disinflation process we are seeing in food? So once we answer that, then we can juxtapose it with the chart we showed, which is the top 20 high inflation items. Because if you just look at the top 20 high inflation items, you miss the boat. So the point we are making is that, yes, food inflation is coming down very fast. But the question is, what food items are contributing to this fast disinflation? And this is the answer. Now, if you look at the data, if you drill deep down into the data, you realize that fried plantain and beans, which is, of course, a very popular dish in Ghana. That's what some people call a gobe, right? Now, December 2024, inflation for fried plantain and beans was 43.6%. By September 2025, that inflation had reduced to negative 5.3%. What does this mean in plain language? It means that in December 2024, if you took plantain and beans and you looked at the price movement in plantain and beans, as at December 2024, the prices of plantain and beans had actually increased by 43.6% in December 2024 compared to December 2023. That's what it means. Now, fast track this to September 2025. The inflation for fried plantain and beans is negative 5.3%. In fact, this is the deflation. What it means is that between September 2024 and September 2025, the prices of fried plantain and beans reduced by 5.3%. This is a very fast disinflation process. It means that the prices of the inflation for fried plantain and beans actually reduced by 49 percentage points between December 2024 and September 2025. So that's very, very big. Second, let's look at imported rice. If you took imported rice in December 2024, its inflation was 22.2%. By September 2025, its inflation had reduced to 1.3%. And this is a reduction or a drop in inflation in imported rice by 21 percentage points. Again, this is very massive. Let's take yam. You take yam, and then in December 2024, yam's inflation was 46.2%. By September 2025, that inflation for yam had reduced to 11.8%, which is a drop by 34 percentage points. Take fresh tomatoes. In fact, in December 2024, fresh tomatoes recorded a negative inflation of 4.7%. That's a deflation, meaning that if you bought fresh tomatoes in December 2024, their prices were lower than December 2023 by 4.7%. And in September 2025, even the price reduction has even widened, which is better for Ghana. And the inflation we are recording for fresh tomatoes in September 2025 is negative 45.8%.
Doc,
you know,
Doc, I like the examples you are giving, but let me also give you 2 examples from your own data. So when I went to your top 20 contributors for inflation for September, cooked rice, the month-on-month inflation, it was 14.6%.
Yes.
Kenke and fish, which arguably is the commonest food in Ghana, 18.2%. So
I was coming.
So my worry is that fine, the food. If you ask most Ghanaians in Ghana what food they eat in the afternoon, I'm sure kenke and fish will be in a comfortable lead, and maybe rice and stew. So those are bigger, in my view, contributors. And you've mentioned yokegari, which is fine, but if we have a glut of maize, why should kenke be in your top contributors to inflation? There's something wrong somewhere, right?
Yeah. So Bernard, I think that's spot on. You're right. But you know, the list I was giving you, you know, onions is included. I'm talking about the list that brought in food inflation. Now, garden eggs are there, dried red pepper is there, okra is there, cassava is there, river fish is there, green pepper is there, and cocoyam leaves is there as well. Now, I mean, you're spot on. If you looked at the items that actually made their list to the top 20 high inflation, or if you want the items from the food side that registered very high inflation, yes, kenke was in there. In fact, vegetable oil is also in there, and we all know the role of vegetable oil in our homes. Almost everybody, use vegetable oil. Sea fish is there. Green plantain is there. Smoked herrings. And then also ginger. Ginger has been on top for some time now. So they are all there. And that's not too good. Not too good because, yes, we've listed a number of items food items that saw reduced inflation. But at the same time, there are also other food items whose inflation really, increased. So what we should do, in my view, is that to lock in the progress we have seen in terms of the items that registered very low inflation. I'm talking about food items that registered very low inflation. At least a couple of things should happen. Number one, we should invest in irrigation to smooth seasons, support year-round production, and mitigate the impact of rainfall risks for staples like yam, cassava, and rice and vegetables. Because as I mentioned, some are seeing very low inflation rates, but there are also others that are seeing high inflation rates. Secondly, food storage has been an issue for some time now, and we have to deal with it. Especially, we have to ensure that we deal with, cold chains and even dry storage. We have to address that. There's no point in producing a lot of food and then just because of 1 or 2 issues, you're not able to store them, and then they go bad. If you do that, not only are you wasting the food, you're actually destroying the livelihood of the people who produce the food. And then our farmers would be in serious issues. So we have to invest in food storage issues to cut post-harvest losses for perishable, items like tomatoes, garden eggs, pepper, okra, onions, as well as guarantee smooth supply. And then maybe finally, but not the least, what we need to also do is to ensure that we invest in reliable transport networks, because that has been an issue. Sometimes we see these food prices going up, not because their original prices are high, but because when we transport them from areas of surplus to areas of deficit, the distribution cost is so high that they make the price high. So we need to make sure that we have reliable transport networks to connect farmers to markets and to move food from surplus to deficit markets, and also to reduce price gaps across regions.
Let's end with recommendations for households in particular, because a lot of times, most people do not know that what they decide affects inflation. But the minister, for example, was admitting that it looks like even though local rice is available, some people may prefer foreign rice. And in fact, one of the stories we read, the Ghanaian Times interviewed a seller who said, even though the local rice is much cheaper, a lot of people still prefer to buy so-called long-grain foreign rice at a higher price, right? Does your work have specific courses of action for individuals too, as against what government must do and what businesses must also do to bring inflation further down?
Yes, Bernard. So the methodology we have adopted is that when we do our work, yes, of course, the Ghana Statistical Service is clothed with the mandate to collect data, disseminate the data, but we are also very mindful of the fact that our work shouldn't stop at generating the data and disseminating it. We are very sure that our work should underpin every decision-making process that would support the development of the country. Whether that decision is taken by households, is taken by businesses, is taken by government, it has to be supported by data. And so we are very conscious of this. And so we try to ensure that whatever data work we are doing or statistics work we are doing actually follows the development value chain from policy planning, to implementation, to monitoring, to evaluation. In fact, we follow through to development outcomes. And that's how come, if you check our recent publications, we are ensuring that, yes, we are a statistical service to produce data and disseminate. We try to profile recommendations. Because what's the use in producing the data if we don't work with the policymakers, if we don't work with businesses and we don't work with households to make sure that the insights we are getting from the data, we are giving recommendations which could be implemented to improve the development of the country. So, for example, for the September 2025 CPI work we did, we gave a number of recommendations. So for household, we actually recommended that, yes, inflation is coming down. So they should take advantage of the falling inflation, which is now more predictable, to plan ahead. Household usually would have to plan on their budget. They have to ensure that they avoid unnecessary spending and set aside whatever little they can. Of course, inflation is still positive, meaning that prices are still rising, but at a much slower rate. But that provides some space for households. So we recommended that if they're able to set aside some little that they should do that now, so that they will be able to use those resources in times of turbulence. And then for businesses, we are mindful of the fact that businesses are extremely important in the development equation. Inflation is coming down. So we are saying that they should invest in productivity. They should invest in ensuring that they become more efficient. And then they should also invest in local supply chains as inflation is low. And then they should strengthen sourcing their inputs from local producers, as well as continuing to grow as the economy stabilizes. But we strongly also recommended that they should pass on cost savings, especially where they are getting their inputs from cheaper sources. It's important to pass on the cost savings, because when you do that, you build some trust between the businesses and then the consumers, and then you're able to remain competitive as well. And finally, Bernard, if I may, we also recommended that government should keep maintaining the fiscal discipline. It's very important. We've seen some improved fiscal consolidation efforts by the fiscal authorities. This is very, very important. This should continue. It shouldn't be a 9-day wonder. It should continue. And then also, we should try and focus our resources on keeping the food prices low and strengthening food storage, like I said, irrigation, transport. Yeah, so these are some of the recommendations we gave.
Doc, thank you. Thank you, Doc. So I can say you've brought us single-digit inflation. Long may it continue. And number two, may it translate into what people buy in various markets, particularly when it comes to food. So we'd like to thank you, Dr. Alassane Idrisu, government statistician, for speaking to us. Earlier on, we brought you highlights of an interview I did with the Minister for Agric, Mr. Eric Opoku, who tried to explain the possible disparity in terms of prices when it came to food. Thanks for watching tonight's edition of The Point of View. Again, congratulations to the Black Stars. We are nearly there. The last game in Accra, we must win big against the Comoros. We'll see you next time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.